just letting it exist as a contrast to how far we've come as people and as a civilization. I don't think these outlets or these writers understand the kind of damage that this approach does. Not only does it do damage to their own credibility, but it does it to the games themselves. Contrast matters. Games that are exploring historical themes or history itself should be able to present that.
Well, it looks like bullshit. Like when I'm playing a historical game and then they have a bunch of female like warriors, I'm like, okay, this is one of those bullshit weird games. Because everybody knows that didn't happen. Like, and then also like, oh, but there's like Joan of Arc or like 3 other examples. Exactly. That's the point. Yeah, anytime I see that kind of stuff, I immediately am like, oh, okay, it's one of these games.
That world as it was, not as they wish it would have been. But rather than allow creative talent to stand on its own, the media often demands ideological conformity, filtering everything through modern social commentary. And when the game doesn't comply, they wield their platforms like weapons, shaming these developers, poisoning discourse, and trying to turn the audiences against them.
He's completely right about this. He is 300% right about this. Is that they weaponize their platform. And the thing is that, and this is the reason why I do the same thing now. Because like these people are never going to stop doing this. So the only way to fight back against this is to do it back to them. And by the way, there's a lot more of us than there are of them. As you can see by the fact that my channel is doing really well, and they're laying people off. Keep going? Oh, I will. I will keep going until it's done.
Final Fantasy 16 went through the exact same thing. Square Enix wanted to tell a grounded Northern European-inspired fantasy story.
Oh,
the director explained. That excessive diversity would conflict with the game's lore and tone. He was met with headlines like Final Fantasy 16 dev has a terrible answer for why the game is so white, or Final Fantasy 16 has no business abiding by historical realism.
No, actually, you're wrong. Nope. Nope.
This wasn't coverage, it was a correction. A demand that...
Yeah, this is not journalism, this is activism.
Even fiction needs to submit to ideological vetting. I think that these developers should have the freedom to create without being publicly shamed for not fulfilling someone else's social agenda. Not every game has to represent everyone, and not every creative decision is a political statement. And to be fair,
and these people have no problem saying that when a game like South of Midnight comes out. They have no problem saying like, well, this game isn't made for you. Okay, fine. Well, what about when a game's not made for you? Okay, well, that has to change.
I can already hear the counter-argument. Players have mounted pressure campaigns through pushing back against what they view as forced representation or initiatives that they don't agree with, but there is a difference between market feedback and institutional pressure. One affects sales, the other shapes perception. The media controls how these games are framed and who sees them. When they start pushing...
Like, they push the narrative, they try to force these things into video games, and they create a chilling effect inside of game development, where if games don't capitulate to their behavior, they will write stories and tell lies about these video games in order to make them look better. And that's why now, for video games that do play games narratives, and they do actually listen to the journalists, it's like, you know, like the siren song of Odysseus, right? It's like, you know, if you want to sail your ship onto the rocks, that's fine. And guess what we are? We're the rocks. We'll destroy the ship. And it's worked. And that's why so many of these video games have died. It's because there's been so much pushback from them. And now these companies are afraid of doing it. Get wrecked? Yeah, get wrecked. There's blood in the water now? Yeah, exactly. And you can, by the way, if enough people are negative about a game, you can absolutely kill the game. Don't ever believe that you can't do it. You can.
I'm hunkering down.
Believe in yourself.
Ideology over insight, it stops being criticism and it starts becoming coercion. What the media never seems to be able to grasp is that this outrage cuts both ways when they pressure studios to mold games into ideological statements to create the backlash. not just against that game, but the very idea that these games need to carry a message. Assassin's Creed Shadows, South of Midnight, Concord, they didn't draw fire in a vacuum. The media helped build the environment where these players now sit back. You kept shaping the discourse. Don't be surprised when discourse shapes you right back. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I mean, this is the reason why Polygon and many of these other media outlets have lost their relevance over time, and it's because in the eyes of players, they've become an oppositional force.
It's because they're wrong. That's the reason why. It's because their viewpoints and their their way of seeing the world is simply wrong. People don't have a problem with politics in video games. People have a problem with the mentally ill, SSRI addicted, upper middle class white woman, progressive American politics. That's what people don't want to hear.
Now I'm kidding.
Nobody has a problem with Metal Gear Solid's politics. People do have a problem with politics like Concord. That's the big difference.
That is using their platforms to pressure studios to make changes.
Yeah, it's not that we don't want politics. We don't want your politics.
Players before themselves, and that's all been proven with recent statements made by Daniel Barba, the creator of Kingdom Come Deliverance. In a recent Check interview, Kingdom Come creator Daniel Barba opened up about the impact Polygon and others had on him after the first game. He said that it felt like there was
Daniel Barba was the guy that was the creative director.
Maximum
He was the creative director for Kingdom Come Deliverance, and he got a ton of hate back when the game originally came out because the game didn't adhere to certain social norms.
Sword of Damocles hanging over his head. He admitted he was very afraid that journalists would pull what they did with the first game on him.
This, by the way, is a metaphor for like a Greek story where there's like a sword hanging over a guy's head with like a fine thread on it, and it's the idea of like you being on edge, you're gonna be cut anytime.
Yeah, complaining that the sequel wasn't very diverse and blah, 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 to quote him directly. He talks about how he was afraid that they would scour his Facebook, auto-translate his political rants, and write up that he's now a Trumpist right-winger and
That's right.
against this and that. He talks about how that felt like a threat to him and how he was prepared to get fired over it. That is the legacy of Polygon, not just irrelevant articles, fear, self-censorship, development choices made out of survival, not creativity. You can have
and
your...
also, do you want to know one of the really big proofs that gamers are actually not right-wing at all, and this is a totally fake narrative that's being created by weird Karen freaks, is the fact that Metaphor was one of the greatest games that came out last year, and I think that very few people debate that. Metaphor covered very progressive social issues, but it did so in a way that wasn't patronizing to the player, and it was respectful, and it was mature. The entire idea that like gamers, like I don't know what they think that they want, right? And so the medieval, so the media called Dan out. Yeah, I don't know. But Metaphor is one of the top 3 games of all time. It's a very good game, right? Luis Guillaume. Well, I think Luis Guillaume is a really great example, right? Is like if he was a villain in a Western video game, he would not be intelligent. He would not be well spoken. He would not be clever. He wouldn't be able to discover the King's Magic, right? He wouldn't have been able to do any of these things. He would have just been like this big, dumb, oafish retard that nobody likes, but we have to kill him. Right? He'd have one charisma. He wouldn't be attractive. Exactly.
Opinions on Barba, choices that he made and the things that he said. However, this is what happens when coverage turns into punishment, when the writers think that they are moral arbiters instead of critics, when review sites become political weapons instead of industry observers. When the players see the media wield this sort of influence, when they see them fail to represent them, what do you think the end result of that is going to be? And it's not like they've only done this once. They've been doing it the entire time with articles like Yakuza examines masculinity with care but leaves women behind. God of War...
I'll patch you up.
I won. Ah, jeez. What a fucking mystery. Like, I played the Pirate Yakuza game.
I'm not done yet.
This is absolutely a shonen. It is. It's a total shonen. The entire thing is like that. Like, it really... It's a story written with the spirit of a young man. That's the way it is, and that's who it's going to appeal to. Some women might like it, sure, and there's guys that like Animal Crossing. But let's talk about averages.
Director on toxic masculinity and why Kratos has to change. Gaming's toxic men. Explained. Why are game companies so afraid of politics in their games? You watch as their coverage turns from because
They're just afraid of your politics because your politics are stupid.
criticizing the industry, criticizing the audience for not agreeing with them. At first, it's a couple of studios that are the issue, and then it's everyone except them is the You can't expect your readers to want to stick around for that, or be supportive of you or your industry. I mean, at a certain point, you have to wonder who they're even writing for, because clearly it isn't for the player, because the average gamer is
And
not
that's
looking
another really good component that he's bringing up is like, who is this for? Like, whenever you're writing these articles, like, who's going to read these articles, and like, how many people like that are out there that are going to read them? And we found out the answer to that. Not very many.
to be scolded, psychoanalyzed, or
not very
accused of
many.
moral failure every time they load up a title that doesn't match with the editor's worldview. But that's what much of their writing has become, a performance of superiority that's aimed at the very people that they need to stay in business. Instead of cultivating a community, they treated them like they were an obstacle. Instead of insight, they're offering disdain. You cannot insult your readers, ignore their values, and then act surprised when they stop showing up. I mean,
Well,
look
it's
at one of the
also-
articles that they wrote.
I mean, gamers was used as a pejorative term, and that was started by games journalism. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but like, that's a really bad way of marketing yourself.
This year. These video games kill fascists,
You'll
cathartic
need a
video
top-notch
games to
team
get your
to win
anger
this
out in a
one.
healthy way. Listen, I'm all about staying abreast on current events, but watching the fascist white cis hetero patriarchy put boots on the necks of anyone they want gets old fast.
Not for me. I loved Space Marine 2. It was actually amazing. Yeah, I had fun. Great.
If you feel like dismantling the systems of oppression with wanton destruction, these games provide the sweet feeling you get from bringing the ruling class down effect.
bring peace to
This is written by some fucking, like, either
30
fat
seconds
as
before you
fuck
attack.
or
Get ready.
90-pound kid that's like in Starbucks. Like, this is a kid that has to like cry in his bathtub with the DoorDash delivery driver rings the doorbell instead of
The
leaving.
ascension to godhood is achieved by worship
It's the
and
most
belief.
pathetic fucking shit that you've ever seen.
No. I'm an Asgardian here.
Bro, what the fuck is this? Have you ever thought about the fact that the vast majority of the gaming audience doesn't tune into this, likely aren't even paying
Care about the
attention
ruling class? What the fuck is
All
wrong
you need
with
to
you?
do is capture the mission
to
area.
politics, and they see this extreme rhetoric and honestly failed
And it's
politics.
also like, it's so one-dimensional and childish. I think that's also the big problem that a lot of people aren't bringing up, is that the way that they explain these issues are just so bad.
For violence as weird and uncomfortable as hell. You write something like this, you publish this under the banner of a games journalism outlet, and then you wonder why you're sold off and your staff is laid off.
What are the odds?
You alienated your audience, you scared developers into silence, you turned your platform into a weapon, then you pointed it at the very industry that once embraced you. And for what? Look, let me be clear, there are hardworking people in games media who don't buy into any of this. Talented writers that just want to talk about games, who care about storytelling, systems, and creativity. But they have been
Yeah, they're
drowned
YouTubers.
out, undermined by the loudest voices in the room. The ones who treat players like problems, developers like enemies, and their own platforms like a soapbox. This is how you kill an outlet. Congratulations, mission accomplished. You have a lot of these outlets and
Welcome to
writers that are
DoorDash.
talking at people and not with them.
This is what I said, by the way, on the second time. Yeah, this is it. This is what I said whenever this came.
Happy to help.
What strange little spider?
Welcome.
We're in this together.
That wasn't very empathetic.
Spiritual energy accumulation in progress.
It's the way it is.
exact same time being completely detached from reality, which does not help their
Draw that.
situation
No.
whatsoever. They're pressuring these games to be made. They're pressuring these changes to be made within these games. The players aren't even asking for it. They're making articles, and the audience and the readers aren't even with it. Look, man, I'm not here for marching orders. I'm here for gaming news, and if that's not what you're going to give to me, then I have no reason to be. That's what's happening right now. You know, I'll be honest, I had no idea that Polygon was this. I had no. I haven't really read them in a long time. I usually stick to Inside of Gaming because they stick to the news and they have some pretty good writers. But I started going through their article history, and they have some talented people, really talented people. There's some good stuff that they write, but the human eye is trained to find things that don't belong, and there is a lot that doesn't belong on Polygon or on the internet at all, to be honest with you. But you find yourself asking, who is this stuff even being written for?
Yep.
And even more so, why would you even give it
Well, we found out. We found out who it's been written for. No one.
some of this stuff? And I know people want to point out the writers.
Yep.
They are the ones that are writing it. But you have editors.
They found out
How do
too.
you guys? How did you have jobs? You don't have one. How did you have jobs? You should have known not to be posting this content. You should have known that's going to drive people away.
No, they don't know that because they put themselves in an echo chamber, and all the people that are around them agree with them and tell them that they're right. And if you do that for long enough, you start believing your own bullshit. And I think that's what's happened.
In a lot of ways, it's just social immaturity. That if you disagree with someone on anything, they have to be the end of story. That's just where this goes. And you can't include their perspective in good faith because, well, it has to be vilified. It has to be demonized. And you're not
A
going
great
to
example of these are Stellar Blade and Black Myth Wukong. I think those are two really great examples of that happening.
an audience that way. And you're definitely not going to be making any money that way. And I think that the industry, I think these outlets did the same thing that the industry essentially did, which is post-Gamergate, they abandoned the initial audience that they had in search for this wider audience that they
I think that what they wanted to do is they wanted to go beyond games media and games journalism, and they wanted to become like full-on journalists. But the problem is that they didn't have the skill, insight, or knowledge, or probably even like mindset to be genuine, real journalists. So they thought that if we, like, it's kind of like, this is a weird metaphor, right, or analogy, but I'm gonna make it because I love doing it. It's kind of like, you know how people say like, oh, you have to start in gay porn in order to get to straight porn. I think this is the way a lot of these game journalists thought, is that, okay, well, I'm going to start writing about video games, and then I'm going to become an established journalist in a general sense. Do you see kind of like what I'm saying? I heard that. Yeah, everybody's heard that before, right? That's virtue signaling? Yeah, and I think that's the real reason.
that was out there that had shared values.
No one says that, bro? I don't know. I hear it all the time.
But it just doesn't exist. It's just
Literally
not
never
out
heard
there.
that?
You know, they have to come to the sobering reality that no matter how much you don't agree with your audience, how vile, how vitriolic, how abhorrent they are, you have to find a middle ground.
Yeah. Here's a
That's
great example of this, like with streaming, is that, like, I do think that streaming is like, it takes some degree of effort and some degree of time. It's not like a super easy thing to do in all circumstances. But I'm not going to sit around and soapbox about that, because at the end of the day, I understand that my audience, number one, like if you go to your barber to get your hair cut, you don't want to listen to your barber complain about their job. So you have like the, like, just really kind of common sense perspective of people don't want to watch a stream where a person is complaining about having to stream. The same as, you know, again, like a barber or whatever. But it's also that people just don't see it the same way that I do. They don't have the same insight that I do because they don't do it. And I don't do what they do either. And so when you try to force people to see the world the way that you do, all you're going to do is force people to see the world the opposite way. In general, the more that you try to push people into believing something that they don't want to, the more that you will push them away.
You
Just
have
in
to.
a
You have to
very
find a way to
general
be able to
sense.
reach them. And I know that people are going to point it out and say, well, oh, LD, look how the gaming audience is. These guys do the exact same thing. They pressure these companies. They use social controversy and things of that sort.
exactly what we'll do. That's exactly right. Because it works. It worked for games media for years. Absolutely.
Or it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Guys,
You'll
I'm just
need a
going to tell you, I'm
top-notch
just
team
going
to
to tell
win
it to you
this one.
straight.
And also, by the way, the customer is always right in matters of taste. Games media isn't the customer. We are. That's the difference.
They're the ones that are paying. They're the ones
That's
that
right.
you need their attention.
Yep.
So either you figure out a way to be able to reach them, or you are reaching for a job application. That's it. You know, that's the thing. The media has just continued to fail to adapt to a lot of these different cultural changes.
Round one.
Even the way that media has been consumed over the years. A lot of that has changed. They haven't adapted to any of that. And from my perspective, while it might be Polygon today, I think
30
they're all going to
seconds
be
before you attack. Get
Polygon
ready.
tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Good one.
Guys,
Good
we aren't
one.
just losing Polygon, we are starting to
True.
lose all of them. In an article written by Christopher Drain titled "The Number of Video Game Articles Dropped by Over 100,000."
I have a feeling he would be proud, T'Challa.
That's a good start.
Go as planned. He will be able to tell me soon enough.
In quarter one, he writes, the top 135 video game
battle
websites
starts in
published
5,
over 635 articles in
3,
quarter one this
2,
year.
That's right.
Press
1.
engine data reveals. That's a
All you
drop
need
of
to do
over
is capture the mission
13%,
area.
or
Got it?
more than 100,000 articles compared to the same period in 2024. That number covers reviews,
Only
news,
13%,
guides, features,
guys.
and code pages, and includes websites from all around the world. A lot of the biggest drops were at guide-based productions, but there were also big declines amongst major media outlets, including IGN, GameSpot,
It can get
Famitsu,
even
and
lower.
Eurogamer.
It can get way
The
better.
reason for this decline is no big surprise. According to Press Engine, it has seen 2,902 press contacts disappear from its database over the past 2 years. Those press contacts include amateur, part-time, and freelance journalists, but it ultimately highlights a significant drop in people writing about video games and redundancies having hit almost every major media publication. There are other factors that are influencing the drop in video game articles, including with coverage of titles, a decision driven by changes to Google search engine. 100,000 fewer articles and nearly 3,000 fewer press contacts is a dramatic shift. But let's not pretend like this is coming out of nowhere. That 13% is a symptom, not a disease. The audience
It's only the beginning. It's only the beginning. Just keep that in mind.
I'm clocking some bad guys.
is gone. The content isn't landing, and thanks to the changes in Google search algorithms prioritizing the biggest names, unless you're IGN, Forbes, or PC Gamer, you're basically invisible. And even then, you have to wonder, who's even reading this stuff? I'm not even saying that to be cool, but I was even hard-pressed to name more than a dozen gaming outlets on the top of my head, let alone 135. And that's coming from somebody who actually reads this stuff. But then again, what would those missing articles have been about? Well, some are going to be shocked by this sudden drop. I'm wondering who's actually going to miss them. We don't need 15 articles all regurgitating the exact same press release. I've joked about this before. The media uses return to form like it's a summoning spell every time a new game that they like flops. But that's the reality. The same quote, same take, same structure, barely any variation.
That's also like he's bringing up a very good point about this, is the fact that a lot of the writing is at a fundamental level very bad. It's boring, it's repetitive, it's not interesting. Yeah, it's like, again, if AI can only regurgitate things that were already written, and you're worried about AI taking your job as a journalist, then maybe I think you just self-report it. You know, maybe, right?
Auto 6 delay. It was everywhere, but not a single outlet provided anything beyond the basic announcement. No exploration of Take-Two stock dropping, no discussions about how the pressure to meet earnings forecasts could shape Rockstar.
And this is the problem that they have, right? Is that they're incapable of any form of second-order analysis at all. And the reason why is that they're so one-note with like the way that they see things that it's boring to watch and it's boring to read. Like people don't want to read. Like this is one thing. Like I think even newspapers have this where, and I think this is a decline of this is the decline of people's command of the English language and their ability to communicate with it. And I think it's been going on for years now, probably 20 years, 30 years, my whole life. Like I feel like every year people become less literate.
down to 30
decisions or set a precedent across the industry, just the same surface level reporting
Time
as
for
put
the
across
finish.
a dozen sites. That's not journalism, that's a carbon copy feedback loop designed to farm SEO. And of course it is, because it's all just a pipeline for ads. It's no surprise the players are tuning out. Most of these sites are unreadable without an ad block. Autoplay videos that are glaring over text, walls of pop-ups that choke out the
There are film sites in 2001 that were less intrusive than these different games journalism
We'll have to
websites.
keep fighting until we have a winner.
content. Even if you do manage to navigate that
It's not even
minefield,
close.
half the time a paywall is going to slam down on you mid-scroll. It's not just bad, it's an actively hostile environment for readers. So players are going elsewhere. They're turning to YouTube and streamers, Twitter, and Reddit, TikTok, wherever else they can go, because at least those people are talking to them, not down to them. At least they're entertaining. At least they're authentic. At least they respect your time. You can throw a video on in the background, let it ride while you're at work or you're commuting, and you can get an actual discussion, not a barely rewritten press release.
That's also another really big point, is that this is a meta level shift in the way that individuals consume content in general. Is that most people consume content through multitasking. And I think that's also one of the reasons why people like subtitles in movies, is because sometimes they'll be listening to or paying attention to two things at the same time. And so the reason why is that whenever you're reading something, you need to be one-dimensionally focused on what you're reading. Whereas whenever you're listening to something, like how many of you guys have me on your second monitor right now? Well, it's hard to have an article on your second monitor. So that's, again, another structural weakness that many companies like this have. It's another problem that writing has, and it's harder for... And the issue really is, like, how do you solve that? You write things that are more compelling, but they can't do that.
We'll save the world.
in ads. Which honestly, that makes this all the more baffling that these outlets have not adapted. Videos should be their strong suit. They already
battle
write
starts
this
in
kind of
5.
content.
IGN does a good
They should
job
turn
at
it
this,
into a
to be
script,
fair.
do a voiceover, add some footage, post it to
Yeah.
YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, anywhere.
have to
There is
stop
no
them from securing
excuse.
the mission
You know,
area.
I was stunned to realize that I am catching up to Kotaku and YouTube subscribers. Me, a guy that's making
Look at
videos
this.
that
2K views. Kevin Smith. This guy is a fucking legend. This is Silent fucking Bob. And you have it has 2,000 views? How do you get Kevin Smith on your channel if you're only getting 2,000 views after 7 months? It's pathetic.
in his spare time, closing the gap on an outlet that's been around since 2000 is probably
Irrelevant? Bullshit. If Kevin Smith was on Theo Vaughn, that episode would have over 1 million views.
done. Has 1.4 million subscribers. And sure, some of their videos actually get some pretty solid views, but they only post once or twice a month, and when they do, it's stuff that people didn't even ask for, like a lore video or a lore breakdown video on how Avowed does lore better than everybody else, a game that's already fading from memory and was widely criticized for being bad at lore. I mean, the business side of me is genuinely frustrated that these guys are sitting on a gold mine of content and they are wasting it. Skill Up and Gamer Rank write articles and newsletters and then they turn it into content. Why can't they? They write multiple articles a week, convert them into videos, double dip.
A spider
Instead, they
infestation.
cry about AI stealing their jobs and sue OpenAI, even though half of their writers are probably using ChatGPT behind the scenes to
No, they're not using ChatGPT. If they were, the articles would be better.
their deadlines by spinning up slightly different versions of what everybody else has already written. The truth is, there is no outside force that's killing them. Not AI, not YouTubers, not Google. It's their own lack of adaptability.
I would disagree with this partially. I actually do think that they're being kind of like, you're burning the candle at both ends, but there's 5 ends, right? Like, attention spans are going down, media consumption trends are changing, the audiences are becoming increasingly polarized against you. You're pushing narratives that don't resonate with an audience, and you put all these things together, and it's death by 1,000 cuts. So it's not really just the fact that they are woke or whatever. This is a problem that's facing all media. It's facing newspapers even. So the fact is that, like, there's just been a generalized shift away from this overall. People cannot read more than a menu. Yeah.
lack of relatability, that's what's actually eating these guys alive. This collapse is total and it's systemic. It's not just a few bad outlets or a couple controversial takes. It's not just Polygon or Kotaku that's writing things that nobody cares about. It's an entire media apparatus out of step with the players, out of touch with developers.
Well, it's because any time that somebody mentions one of these problems and gives it any form of authenticity, they get reprimanded by everybody else in the professional industry. So there's a chilling effect for talking about these things in any sort of an authentic way, which makes people think that the media is biased. And it's because of this.
60 seconds left.
Completely unprepared for how media consumption has evolved. They haven't failed to adapt, they've doubled down on the very behaviors that are driving audiences away. Instead of reflecting or learning from the failures of their peers, they are lashing out. Instead of reporting, they are look no further than PC Gamer's roundup of 2024's biggest gaming controversy. They boil down the criticisms of Assassin's Creed Shadows just to outrage over Yasuke, as if concerns about historical authenticity were conjured out of nowhere. Definitely not.
And it's also like, and this is the other thing too, is that these people think that they have the authority to tell people what they're allowed to care about. If somebody doesn't like Yasuke, it doesn't matter what the reason is for it. They're still not going to buy the game. And so if you want to create an apparatus, and this is the problem, is that these people are so selfish. They think that creating and insulating developers from any form of genuine feedback or criticism is something that's helping them. And then these developers get laid off and their lives are ruined because they were falling for a lie. They were being told a lie by these game developers, and sorry, these game journalists and these companies telling them, oh, this is what people want. No, it's not. And because you've been lied to, what's happened is that you've led yourself down this path that's damaging.
Brought up by Ubisoft themselves, they ignored valid conversations, and by doing so, they poisoned the well. Then there was their response to Black Myth Wukong when Game Science didn't apologize for the loose allegations that were made against them.
This was, in my opinion, I think this was the worst one. Because it was the most blatant attempt at, the media mafia, and it was the most transparent example of it happening. It was such an attack. It was.
Naturally, the usual parts of the Twitter sphere were thrilled to see a developer being so based, especially since Black Myth Wukong was a hit. Proof positive that real gamers don't want politics in their games or some such. Others viewed the whole thing more as just strange and a little creepy.
There are no others. They didn't exist. It's just you. This is what media likes to paint a false majority by having terms like proponents, opponents, people online, voices, things like that. But what they're doing is they're creating a false parody. There actually is no parody. There's like 3 or 4 people saying this, and then everybody else is calling them retarded.
Which hero do you
It's like a
think you
literally
wanna be today?
95-5 or 99-1 situation that they're trying to make people perceive as if it's 50-50.
Then they finished with saying, it's hard not to read the silence as a sign that Game Science feels it has nothing to apologize.
It doesn't.
Yeah, maybe that's because they don't actually have anything to apologize for. Maybe not every developer needs to pass a moral purity test before they're allowed to ship a game. Maybe some of these studios just want to make something cool without having to grovel for forgiveness for every manufactured scandal. But instead of respecting that, the media wants to treat silence like it's an admission of guilt. And this kind of behavior
that's because silence is an admission of guilt, and they're guilty of not getting ad revenue. They create the problem, the company responds to the problem, they monetize the problem being created, they monetize the response, they monetize everything. So this entire problem is created by media in order to sustain media. But as soon as you take a step out of it and you move out of this problem, it doesn't exist at all. Because it never actually did.
Everywhere. Bias is embedded into everything. Contempt for the audience is on full display. They retreat to places like Blue Sky to avoid feedback, posting articles like gamers are terrible people and we should stop being okay with it, only to follow it up later with it's time to start trusting video game reviewers. Yeah.
Nope.
That trust is not coming back. Not after years of talking down to players, punishing developers, and turning the medium built on creativity into a battleground for personal agendas. Polygon's collapse is not an isolated failure. It's a forecast. And it's a warning sign for all of these outlets still pretending like they have a voice of authority while the audience is quietly walking away. You don't get to ignore the people that you claim to speak for. You don't get to mock the community, miss the story, and still expect to be relevant.
That's
you either
a fact.
evolve or you fade out. For most of them, they already have. Press didn't lose the audience, they pushed them away. Now they're watching the lights go out, one outlet at a time. Now this may sound crazy, but games journalism isn't dead. The reason why I say that is because I can bring up an article, I can cite it, I can read it word for word, and people will still engage. People will still watch the video, they'll enjoy it, they'll be entertained by it, they'll hear my opinion, the opinion of the writer, they'll come to their own opinion because it's an open dialogue, not a sermon. With so many of these outlets wanting to educate audiences instead of inform them, it's no surprise why nobody wants to listen.
And that's another thing about the educating thing. The educating term, like just the word, is very, it's patronizing. Because it's implying your ignorance and it's implying their superiority.
You know, we can have a conversation about how women are portrayed in or diversity or whatever the hell else we want. We can do that without having to vilify the audience that you're trying to reach in the first place. It doesn't make any sense. I brought it up. The ESA reported in 2023 that 53% of gamers in the US alone are men. 72% of them are white. It is not enough.
It's way more than 53%, and everybody knows it. The reason why it's so high for women is because they're counting bullshit games like Candy Crush. If you're talking about actual male gamers that are playing PC games that are selling for $60, you're looking at an 80+% audience of men. That's just the way it is. And I bet 80% is probably wrong.
Executioner!
I really didn't know that. It's popular. It's contagious. You can't count the names, come on. Of course I can. There's 5 of them. And there's 500 male games.
Effective strategy to vilify a large subsection of the audience that supports you or your industry. This isn't ideology, it's just math. You can reach these people.
Here's a really great way to look at it. How many women that are popular in video games are not attractive? That's right. 0.
You are under my protection.
In most cases, they'll be willing to listen. But the minute if you start using politics into the conversation, the minute the minds turn off, they turn away from the conversation.
Not attractive, appealing to men. My point is that in all of games media and streaming and content that's made for video games online, it is a prerequisite to at least be conventionally attractive for a female to be able to build an audience.
Opening a portal.
And the reason why is because primarily that audience will be male.
Pentagram of horror.
That's a fact.
Good medicine.
That's it. Like, it's Rogan's not a streamer. She doesn't stream video games, number one. Like, that's not even the point.
Way to run a business, and it is definitely not an effective way to have a conversation. These are things that these guys should be professionals at. Beyond that, written media, that's really what's dying out. And some of it has to do with attention span, some of it has to do with a lot of the ads that are on some of these sites. You know, most of these sites don't even have a dark mode.
Yeah, the sites are awful. And yeah, I mean, like, you can get away with being an unattractive guy in games media, but you can't get away with being an unattractive woman. And the reason why is because men are the primary audience. And men don't want to look at an ugly bitch.
This is real fire!
That's so
Get mad, but that's it.
It hurts my eyes, man. Why do you do this to me?
Sorry.
You know, if it's not on Twitter or Reddit, most people aren't going to be.
Somebody
A lot
gotta
of
say
people
it.
are getting most of their information.
Let's be real.
You have to adapt. You have to capitalize on it. And you have to do anything.
I'm not sorry.
Mortal
I'm gonna
pain
keep
is
doing
no
it.
match for
And
the
you're gonna call me
Sorcerer
every
Supreme.
single
Almost
word
there. Don't turn
except
back
for
now.
one. And that's wrong.
Other than what you're doing right now, because it's not working. And to be honest with you, I don't really want all of them to go. I've said this multiple times.
do.
There's tons of writers that I like.
I do.
And the minute that some of these folks start to wake up to some of this stuff, the minute things get a little bit better. And I genuinely hope that they do. So hopefully some writers found a gleam of solid information in here, or a little bit of advice that they might take into their writing, or maybe they take into their YouTube career, or whatever it might be. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys did enjoy the video, share the video, like the video, comment down below. Make sure you guys.
I don't know how they're going to learn anything that's going to help them doing DoorDash, but you know, maybe I don't know. Maybe they can explain. Yeah, well, maybe if they play a game like Crazy Taxi or whatever. Maybe they
try to go past the market. Yeah. Outside of that, stay cool, stay right, to stay safe. Catch me on
That was a good video. I think he pretty much, he explained it like he's not even as harsh as I am. Like, I view a lot of journalists and journalism as the active enemy of the people. And I think that they actively try to misrepresent, misconstrue, and mislead audiences, and they actively work against the public. Enemies of the state. I mean, I wouldn't say they're enemies of the state, but I think that they are enemies of the truth. I think there's definitely that. And so, yeah, but let's see here. Kevin Smith. Do you remember when I said if Kevin Smith from Unfield's show would have 1 million views?
Hey, New York girls are tougher than this.
That's crazy. Wow.
me again.
Wow. Whoa. What a surprise.
The final
Look
10
at that.
seconds.
It's fucking obvious. Everybody knows it. Yeah, duh. That genius. Yeah, I'm not a wizard for knowing that. I'm normal.
The current score is 1.
Anyway,
2,
do you think there's deliberate efforts in the
0.
in the gaming industry to mute voices?
Time to switch
Yes.
things up.
I think that the
including which
gaming
side
journalism
you're on.
industry absolutely tried to bully and mute people that disagreed with them.
Reality.
They
heroes
100%
can
did
make
that,
all the
and
difference.
that's one of the reasons why I am not sympathetic at all to them whenever bad things happen to them. It's because you actively use this as a weapon, and now the weapon is being used against you. And, you know, you get what you fucking deserve.
The Director General of Air Ops. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Round 2. Go.
Dreamed of a safe haven.
It indeed is a difficult time that we have to come here like this and brief you.
Made it a reality.
We could have done without this, but we had no choice.
They'll be coming in 30
As the
seconds.
DGMO
Stay
has
strong.
detailed, the event was precipitated by the dastardly act
Shooter like me.
at Pahalgam. The sequence of events have already been detailed. We carefully selected the targets, and out of the 9 selected targets,
The battle
the
starts
target
in 5,
systems
4,
that were given
3,
to the Indian Air Force
2, 1.
were the notorious training
You have to
camps
stop them from
at
securing the
Bhabalpur
mission area.
and Muridke. These being further from the
We succeed.
international boundary.
And so we shall.
Don't mind me.
Through
So he's about to show the
critical
satellite footage.
target system
I
analysis,
feel like myself
we
again.
analyzed what was to be done to annihilate these targets
Sure.
and planned to engage these targets with precision air-to-surface guided munitions so as to avoid collateral damage.
I think
The
they
modalities
obviously did.
of planning process
I mean, they obviously did. You got 9 bombs and only like fucking, like what, 27 or something like that, 37 people get killed. That's very precision. That's extremely high precision.
I will not go through at this instead. However, what I would like to show you is
Let's see it.
the result that we achieved through our targeted airstrike.
So they're gonna show
Do I
screenshots.
have the second slide, please?
Uh-oh, they pulling up the PowerPoint?
Yes, page please.
Is this it? Technical difficulties.
Okay. this is what the terror infra at Muriske looks like. If you see, north is as indicated, and to the right is east, where the international boundary lies. Could we have the next slide, please?
So that's the same place?
Orientating. Just go back one slide. Okay. Please have a look at this red building.
Extreme precision
The
ship
series
compared to the US?
of buildings out here. And this
So he's showing that
empty
right there.
ground. Next.
This is the place to watch.
If you relate, the empty ground is here, and you see this is the first weapon that is impacting. This is the impact point number 1
So that was
on
it.
Buritke training camp with a precision guided weapon.
That's a
on
pretty small
early
bomb.
morning 7. Next, please. Keep your eyes
So now
glued
they're showing kill cam footage. Oh boy.
for the second weapon coming in
Yeah.
and the second impact
Slideshow of the bomb.
on the selected target point. Next slide, please.
This collateral fire. I mean, yeah.
Third weapon. Third impact.
Only 60 seconds left.
Continue.
Just embrace the light.
And fourth weapon. Fourth
See it
impact.
fall down too.
So through these targeted and precision targeting, we address the target at Muriske, which was the ferry infrastructure. Can you hear me? All right. Okay, I'll come closer to the mic. Now we go to the next target, which is the Bhavalpur training camp. Next slide, please. Okay, just wait.
So there it is.
So the effect, if you see,
That's that one building they showed.
the
So
impact point.
Collapse and everything that too.
I can point out, this is the impact point.
Next slide. Yeah, exactly right.
Ammunition has gone through the roof and it has created a blast inside, the photographs of which you would have, all of you would have seen.
Yeah.
And the red building, after that there was this double-story building. It has been completely
1, 2,
decimated
0.
by precision targeting. Next, please. The target system which was in the north, a series of buildings. I'll show you how it
I
looks.
mean, I would say that's pretty fucking precision. Like, if they're only blowing up one specific building in, like, this entire area of buildings. I mean, it's not like this is a carpet bombing for sure.
Next. Completely destroyed
Very precise.
by
What
our
did I say?
precision targeting. Next. Now coming to Bhavalpur, this is the target complex that we're dealing with, a fairly large target complex. So we had to carefully choose the points that we needed to address, which were high value and which would meet our stated objectives of eliminating the terrorists.
Yeah, of course.
I would like to draw your attention to this red canopy, and in relation to that, I would cover the targets. One target system is a series of buildings here, other one here, and other one out here. Next slide, please. This is how it looked before.
Bro, the before and after photos. Oh, God. So literally no other building was damaged besides the one building they were trying to
Which
hit.
hero do you think you want to be today?
That's it. Okay, what's the point?
Be wary.
The point is
No
that
timeline
there
exists
was
where
a
Magneto yields.
an accusation that they were just indiscriminately bombing civilians and just killing a bunch of random people.
Who am
And
I
so
gonna
they're
banish from
showing
this match?
literal screenshots from the satellite that this is not the case and this is actually what it looked like to show the precision for it, right? Yeah, now let's see Pakistan. Sure. You guys want to see what Pakistan's footage is? Let's see. What would be a good one for that? How about this? Yeah, we could maybe use this one. This could be good. There's this one also. Yeah, I mean, I don't have Arma 3 down. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we can go ahead and just let's see what Pakistan's up to.
And this is
get their point
how
of
the
view.
building looked after the impact of the weapon. And orientation in relation to this red canopy, you can see here. Next, please. Before, next, and after.
Yep, they're dead.
The roofs have completely collapsed.
You'll need a
Next,
top-notch team to win
Yep,
this
there's
one.
that one before. Just
this is the
that
target
one
system.
building.
Next,
And now it's not there anymore.
precision targeting, and we have achieved our objectives
Even the
here.
other building is nearly
Next.
destroyed.
All right, so that was what we did on the 7th. Our objective was to address these two terrorist camps, and that we did.
So you're telling me that they just blew up like 7 different houses, and out of those 7 houses, they just happened to randomly kill 3 or 4 very well-known terrorists?
Krakoa to suffer the same fate as Kenosha.
Damn.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
Wow. What are the odds of that?
We've got a time stream to put back together, Tony.
That's
Isn't it
some
still
really good. They must have been really lucky. Wow.
With
That's
precision.
crazy.
And
They should buy a
thereafter,
lottery ticket.
we maintained a robust air defense
Yeah.
posture, because
The
remember,
battle starts in 5,
our
4,
objective
3,
was to target
2,
the
1.
terrorists and terrorist infrastructure, not any other infrastructure, not the Pakistani military, not the Pakistanis, any other infrastructure. So that is what we have maintained on the 7th of May. However, what we saw in the evening of 7th of May, we were saturated with a raid of Pakistani unmanned aerial vehicles and small drones. And these came in waves in our civilian areas, over our military installations, and all of them were successfully intercepted. Few of
Judge, jury, executioner!
That's embarrassing. So they sent him over a bunch of these fucking things. They just got shot down. Wow. Okay. We got all of them. Yeah, they've been defeated. Yeah, I guess so. The Chinese weapons. Yeah, bro. Like Pakistan needs it. Did they? I hope they kept the receipt.
them did manage to land. However, there was not much damage that they did. We have our robust counter-US hard skill and soft skill systems which did the job. However, the difference here was that we had targeted the terrorists. The adversary now has targeted our civilian and the military infrastructure.
He's right. He's completely right.
It had to be responded to. So, in a quick and calibrated response, that very night, we struck their radar installation at Lahore and close to Gujarat, the LYT installation. To indicate to him that we are ready, yet we do not want to escalate our...
No, that's a good point. Yeah, India is doing Pakistan a favor by targeting HCP terrorists. Yeah, shouldn't Pakistan be saying thank you? This is good, you know? Like, I mean, these guys have big problems. They're making everybody over there look bad. Like, yeah, like a thank you? Yeah, where's JD Vance when you need him?
Fight was with the terrorists and not with the Pakistani military establishment.
You will
Thank you.
finish your
Get
mission,
that
my
vehicle
friend.
moving again.
Thank you, Air Marshal Bharti. So, ladies and gentlemen, he outlined operations not only on the night of 6th and 7th of May, when Operation Sindoor commenced, but also on the subsequent night. Being well aware and familiar with the congenital and impulsive nature of our adversary, and even though we did attempt to reach out and communicate our compulsions to strike at the heart of terror to my counterpart in the immediate wake of Operation Sindoor, the request thusly turned down, with an intimation.
Pakistan did a press conference too. Did they?
that a severe response was inevitable and in the offing. We were of course prepared.
Down to 30 seconds.
Operations on the 7th and the 8th, Air Marshal Bharti spoken about. On the night of 8th and 9th of May, they flew drones and aircraft into our airspace all across the border.
Every single one of them just got shot down.
And made largely unsuccessful attempts to target numerous military infrastructure.
Bro, like these flying lawnmowers really just aren't gonna cut it. They gotta do something better with it. Like, it's embarrassing. Yes, pathetic.
Violations on the line of control by Pakistan also commenced yet again and precipitated into fierce
I'm starting to feel bad for Pakistan, right? I mean, they bought all this shit from China. They're like, all right, bro, we're about to pull the shit out of them. All right, send them up.
The air operation
Say McDonald's on it.
on the night of 8th and 9th of May, I'll yet again request the DJ air operations to cover.
Someone's phone is going off, bro. Like,
So I just covered what happened on the night of 7th and 8th. What we
now
found
I'm busy.
that on the night of 8th and 9th, starting as early as 23:30 hours, our cities had a mass raid of drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, UCAV, starting right from Srinagar, going down right up to Nalia.
Only 60 seconds.
It was a mass raid in waves, and it was brilliant. However, we were prepared, and our air defense preparedness ensured there is no damage on ground or to any of the intended targets that the enemy might have planned for. The difference between 7th
So they didn't even.
This is real firepower!
Wow.
Down to 30 seconds.
Well, there it is, guys. Now you know. So this is the complete satellite proof. Okay, well, there we go. Let's see if there's any more information about this at all. Finally, solid proof, not some video game-ass footage. Yeah, exactly. They're happening everywhere that they down Raphael, but not acknowledging that their air bases are blown up and army men got killed. I don't know about this at all. Like, yeah, no, these attacks are done by military installations. Separate part of the attack. Pakistan goes great over India. I don't know about that. Let's see here. I would say this operation is for sure political win. IDF is not prepared enough to underestimate the enemy, so they started a propaganda campaign. Yeah, I don't know, man. But thank you for your coverage of India versus Pakistan. It's kind of sad. Western people are making India as the bad guys, while India has been, since the dawn of time, the victim of terrorism. Well, the reason why, the reason why you have some Westerners that are taking the side of Pakistan instead of India is because of the Israel-Palestine conflict. That's the reason why they're doing it. Basically, they've been psyoped into thinking that every sort of relation like this is automatically, these like terrorist people that are the ones that are okay. And I think also like there's a degree of people that think that they're fighting for like Islam or something like that too. And I think these are Westerners that are not Islamic, but they're trying to fight against what they perceive to be Islamophobia. And so they defend these terrorist groups that are Islamic, and they basically say, well, it's okay that they're doing this, or they're trying to justify it. And I think this is what's happening with Hamas. I think it happens with Hezbollah. I think it happens with any of these insurgency groups, whether it's ISIS or anything like this. I don't know if this group has a name. I don't know if there's really a name stated, but that's basically a sheltered people, to be honest. Yes, exactly. And you're fucking stupid? Really? You think that's not it? I think it is. I do. I really think it is. And I think there's a big component of that happening. I think they're scared of Islam and they think they'll be spared if anything pops off. No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that these people, there's like 4 or 5 different components to it, right? And so, like, one really big component to it is the fact that is skin color, right? And so it makes it a lot easier to defend Israel, or sorry, to defend, Gaza from Israel because of skin color. And this is the way that Americans are conditioned. And if you're not an American, you won't understand this. But if you are an American, you will. And you might think, that's so stupid. How could they think on such a binary level? Well, because they've been trained to think like that. That is how people think. And I know it sounds stupid, but again, I have a policy, and you guys need to understand this about me. I have a policy, and it is called, instead of Occam's razor or Hanlon's razor, it is the retard's razor. I think of the dumbest, most one-dimensional, self-serving, stupid, short-sighted, brainless reason why something is happening. That's why it's happening. That's exactly the reason why it's happening. That's it. That's the cause. And so, yeah, I think they do everything as oppressed versus oppressor. They do. And so, and this is also another really big component to it, is that because India is the larger country and the people, the terrorists, and also I think there's a lot of it where these people don't understand how bad a lot of these terrorist groups are. And they think that these terrorist groups are, you know, freedom fighters or a resistance or whatever, when meanwhile they're taking sex slaves, killing people that disagree with them, and terrorizing their own population. Actually, you know what? There's a really good video about this. There was this guy I saw from Yemen. He was talking about it. Let me see if I can pull it up and just give you a different context on this. This is a man who lives in Yemen. Here we go.
Hassan Piker, notorious terrorist sympathizer, just compared Anne Frank to the Houthis, who are ruining my home.
Do you think he's like Anne Frank?
Absolutely. Your beloved Houthis killed my mom's best friend. Anne Frank never killed anyone. Houthis killed her. Your beloved Houthis took over my
It has to be censored a lot in order for it to be viable for TikTok, by the way. Obviously, he's not speaking this way because he wants to. It's just to bypass filters.
By force, not through democracy. Anne Frank never took over anything. She was hiding in an attic. Your beloved Houthis have been starving my people for more than 10 years. Anne Frank was starved by like the ones that you support. Your beloved Houthis have imprisoned journalists and killed minorities.
We need more guys like this to speak out. That's why I want to promote and show this guy, because we need more people like him to show that this isn't some sort of like resistance that represents the people at all. This is a fringe military radical, cult, basically, that is exactly terrorism on not only their enemies, but also their own country members.
Frank was a minority who was silenced and murdered for who she was.
Link his profile.
And as I am saying this,
I'll get you guys.
During the last remaining Jew in the world.
And there's one more in there. Bro, they're almost. That's sick. It's fucking sick.
They're not because he was Zionist.
Is that older guy?
Or Israeli. The last remaining Yemeni Jew is actually anti-Zionist. So Hassan, before you make ridiculous